Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What's Up Wednesday. My name is Rachel, and I'm on the client success team here at Early Learning Ventures. And today I am joined by Ty Johnson. Ty has held various key positions here at ELV, from recruitment specialist, community collaborator, to her most recent former role as senior education manager. Ty was recently promoted to program director for the Early Head Start Childcare Partnerships. I will let Ty introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about her here in just a minute, but welcome, Ty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for sharing, Rachel. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and we're actually really excited to have Ty be joining us over the next couple of weeks for a three-part series focused on wellness and well-being. She's going to tell us more about it again here in just a minute when we get started, but that's really exciting. I do have just a few housekeeping things I would like to go over. So first, thank you everyone who is joining us live, or if you are watching the recording, thank you so much for being here. We would love it if you add a comment saying hello. It's always fun to see new and familiar faces and see comments coming in to see who's watching. If you have not heard of Early Learning Ventures before, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Colorado, and our mission is to expand access to quality and affordable childcare across the nation. The way that we focus our efforts on improving quality of early childcare is by offering resources like technology, one-on-one support to reduce administrative burden, and a wide variety of free resources like What's Up Wednesday, our Family Engagement Friday podcast, and for those located in Colorado, our Shared Services Resource Platform. So make sure you visit our website to learn more and to get in touch. And then in case you missed last week's episode, we were joined by Morgan Klaus, where she shared all about our Colorado Gives Day campaign, which is still going on. So there's still time to give back and make a lasting impact on the lives of children and early childhood education. I am going to pop the link to our campaign page in the comments here. There we go. Hopefully that'll make it easy to access. We do also have some time-sensitive information that we would like to share. So for all of our Alliance Core users, we did send out an email yesterday with more information, but for those of you who have missed that, I definitely encourage you to check your inbox to see all of the information there. But we just wanted to spread awareness and make sure that everybody is aware. We did learn of a new federal law that impacts small businesses. And for those it applies to, which are small businesses with 20 or less full-time employees and revenue of $5 million or less on last year's income tax return, you will need to file beneficial ownership information no later than January 1st, 2025. The process to do this is free, so make sure you're vigilant and ask questions if you need help or support. Filing is simple for you, and it shouldn't take any longer than 5 minutes. So again, we just want to spread awareness here. I do have a tutorial video that I'll put in the comments as well. This was not a video that's created by us, but just helping to make sure that we all have the resources that we need to make this an easy process. And then I also have a website here to do the filing, if that's helpful. That's in the comments. And we are also offering office hours to help. If you need support, want someone to help find these resources with you or look over the form with you, we can offer office hours. We're not filing for you, but we can help support. All right. And then one last announcement before we get started. We are currently hosting a giveaway for our existing Alliance Core users to win a one-year scholarship. To be entered to win, we're asking that you tell us what you do to take care of yourself outside of work. So what does self-care look like for you? And this question perfectly aligns with our topic for today and for this series with Ty. So let's dive right in. Ty, do you want to start us off by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Ty Johnson. My pronouns of choice are she, her, and hers. And I am a first-time mom. My son, of course, is 16 years old. However, first-time parenting a 16-year-old, so I take that very seriously. I am also in a long-term committed relationship with my partner. We moved from California to Colorado in '97, and we've been here ever since. So we are chosen Coloradians. I have worked at Early Learning Ventures for about 12 years in a number of roles, as you shared, and I have truly chosen ELV as my career home. I absolutely love our mission and our vision, and our hope for children to have authentic, responsive caregiving and accessible, high quality early care and education across the state of Colorado and the world.
Thank you. And I think that anyone who has had any interaction with you or has spent any time with you can really see how passionate you are about the work that you do. And we can see it in everything that you put out there and all of your communications. And so it's really amazing to have you on our team.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to work with such a great, dedicated, and committed team.
All right. Can you introduce us to this this three-part series on wellness and well-being? It's a tongue twister. Wellness and well-being on What's Up Wednesday.
WWWUW?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So our hope is to bring to you a three-part wellness series around wellness and well-being. So this part one, we're just going to do some like table setting and just kind of lay the foundation, talk about the many dimensions of wellness, well-being, how are they slightly different, how are they connected. And then in part two, we're going to share a little bit more resources that are really targeted to a variety of people integrating wellness and well-being, alongside part three, ending it up with practical applications to really support your overall wellness and well-being.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think it's great that we're spreading this out so that each section will be nice and easily digestible.
Yeah.
So let's start there then. What is wellness and well-being? How are they different? How are they connected?
You know, when we think about wellness, we're really thinking about this multi-dimensional, proactive approach to living. Wellness is choice making. It leads us to a fulfilling life. It's oftentimes associated with very specific actions and practices and routines, which is why we're going to talk about it later in the series, as well as it's personal. It is an opportunity for us to show up as the many best versions in that particular moment of ourselves, as well as it allows us to create this type of harmony for ourselves that's very individualized. Wellness can be measured. There are a number of health metrics like fitness or dietary habits that measure wellness, as well as there's a strong physical presence when you think about wellness. It's very intentional, it's action oriented, and again, it's about practices and routines. And so when you think about well-being, there's some subjectivity to well-being. Well-being is a broader concept that includes our overall happiness and kind of life satisfaction. Though they are often used interchangeably, well-being is more of a holistic measure that really includes wellness and the other dimensions that we will later talk about of life that contributes to a person's overall well-being. In regards to their interconnectedness, we're really looking at measurement, activities, actions, routines, habits, as well as our own personal view in regards to how we measure our own well-being. And the other thing that I think is important to mention about well-being is that it is related to our standard of living. So there are aspects of well-being that includes like our social connections, our cultural connections, as well as political events. All of it encompasses our well-being and how we ourselves gauge it on a personal level.
I'm glad you put emphasis there on it being a personal level because it really does look different for everybody.
100% agree.
Why do you think it's important to start with this foundational understanding of wellness before we just start diving into strategies?
You know, honestly, I think the most important thing about understanding wellness is the fact that it is so multidimensional, right? If we can understand the different dimensions of wellness, then we can actually create an intentional approach to various ways that we may choose to address wellness, right? Because there's so many different aspects of ourselves. Understanding that wellness involves an active choice, specific practices, participating in one thing or another will help us align to what it is we truly seek. And ultimately, it's important so we can focus on the areas that we can actually influence.
You mentioned the different dimensions a few times. Can we talk more about that? Maybe examples of how these show up in our lives, mental, emotional, financial. There's so many different aspects.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Traditionally speaking, there's been a lot of emphasis given to like 6 or 8 major dimensions of wellness. And so just giving some example of those dimensions, you, of course, like you said, you have your emotional, your physical, your intellectual, spiritual, social, financial, occupational, and environmental. Those are predominantly the major dimensions of wellness that we typically look at when we're speaking about wellness. As how they show up in our lives, we think about our physical being. That's caring for our bodies, right? This could be physical activity, it could be nutrition, it could be sleep. It can also be seeking out support to then aid that physical wellness. It could be things like annual exams, and I do mean all of them, guys, all of them. And again, really taking care of our physical body. So it could be things like the way our shoes fit, how our clothes fit. It could be the type of vehicle we actually drive that can contribute to our physical wellness. We also have intellectual wellness. Intellectual wellness is a very big deal because that allows us to have this perspective around a value for lifelong learning, like expanding our own knowledge and skill set, both professional and personal, in a way that allows us to then, of course, share that forward, right? Trying something new is how that can show up in our lives. Doing things that energize our brain, right? And learning some things every single day that we want to continue to enjoy, and being connected to the process, so to say. In regards to like spiritual wellness, one of my most favorite, I have a huge bias for spiritual wellness. And this is really about finding our purpose and finding our meaning in life. What supports our values and our beliefs in a way that allows us to really show up in an expressive way and have a sense of belonging and being able to take ownership, whether it's in the workplace or the home place. It's really seeking that peace and that strong focus on meaning making.
Yeah, and I love that you elaborated on spiritual in particular, and I love that that's your favorite because when I hear spiritual wellness, I didn't think of it in that perspective of just finding peace and finding what you feel drawn to and what gives you purpose. And then
Mhm.
you also mentioned seeking out support for the physical aspect in particular. I think that was really great to mention, and that it could be this is intimidating, like you said, the annual exams, like I feel a little called out there. Not something I'm great with, but seeking out support. You don't have to keep track of all these things or be responsible for all these aspects all on your own.
Right. Absolutely.
So how does wellness evolve? I mean, it's something that's always changing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when we talk about our own evolution of wellness. Again, it really is important that we think about giving the attention to how the dimensions are interdependent and how that relates to our overall wellness. So the physical, intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, occupational, and financial and environmental dimensions, and how they are all interrelated. And remembering that in this evolution of wellness, they do not have to be equally balanced, right? We do want to strive for that personal harmony, of course, which will look very differently for all of us, as you have already shared. And so, really focusing on what wellness looks like in an area of our life can then, of course, add value to another area of our life, which ultimately impresses upon our whole well-being. So when we're thinking about how we are approaching our wellness, we may want to emphasize on certain aspects of the dimensions that are presenting themselves in our lives at that particular moment. One of the things that I always like to think about in regards to my own spiritual wellness, of course, is really, really thinking about, am I taking time? Am I setting aside those precious moments where I can just have moments of quiet and calm and peace? Am I meditating, or am I praying, or am I journaling? Am I doing the things that I know are going to continuously help my wellness in this area continue to evolve? And then what do I do when there's a block, right? What do I do to shift and pivot, and what that looks like on a consistent basis?
I think that's really important to focus on there, is what do I do to evolve? Because of course, like you said, we want to strive for that perfect harmony and everything being in balance, but that's not always how life works. I mean, maybe you could find that perfect balance at some point, but things are always going to be changing outside circumstances. And how do we evolve, and how do we adapt our approaches?
Absolutely. And that has to, you use the best word in your question, evolve. That's not a black and white. That is a both and it's also being able to live in that gray space of evolution, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing so amazingly well today, I may do okay with tomorrow, but in another area, I may do exceptionally well. It's all
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah. And I think this is important too, to talk about, what does unwellness look like? I think
Oh,
we can sometimes have a hard time recognizing that, whether in ourselves or others. And what can that look like?
that's such a great counterpart when we're talking about wellness.
Yeah.
It's important. A friend of ours shared earlier this week. It's important to recognize wellness and unwell, and people have a hard time with that. So, in
Hmm.
order to know what unwell looks like, you actually kind of have to also know what well looks like, right? And so, for some of us, many of us, wellness could look like habits, routines, meal planning, uh, continuous or consistent social routines and interactions, cleaning our home on a routine. So then when we're unwell, right, it could be either the polar opposite of that, but remember, it's evolving. So we're still on that continuum, or it could look like the extreme to that, right? And so unwell could show up on either end. So where I typically am a Sunday and Wednesday laundry doer, I may go to the extreme and do laundry every single day when I only have 3 pieces of garment to wash. Or I may allow that laundry to build up to where I now have 4 loads of laundry instead of the one typical load that I usually have by Wednesday. And that is unwell, right? The other important piece I think that is really good to mention is unwellness is equally as personal as wellness. So
Mhm.
that is where we get to choose what we call unwell, because what I call unwell for me may not be unwell for someone else. If we're thinking about the physical dimension of wellness, right? Unwell could look like digestive issues. It could look like heartburn. It could look like a change in my appetite. But it could also look like exhaustion or fatigue or irritability, and I'm thinking about spiritual. Unwellness could also look like I'm not able to focus or concentrate. I may have memory issues. I may have a break in my routine of prayer and concentration. That it could look like unwell for me. But understanding who I am and what I call wellness is very important. So then that way I can measure when I'm unwell also.
Yeah. And you brought the evolution back into that response there too. And really, it is always changing. And you're going back to your laundry example, and maybe that is your path to wellness, just evolving. And maybe
Mhm.
you have a pile by Wednesday, but your laundry day is just changing, or maybe it's just looking a little bit different. You're focusing more on a different aspect that week. And
Mhm.
I think that's really important for us to turn. internally check in with ourselves and look at other aspects. And like you said, having that contrast there to compare.
Absolutely.
And I think that really brings me into my next question here is, why is mental health often seen as taboo? How can we shift this narrative? You even said it's hard to talk about, especially with unwellness. It's a hard topic to talk about, but why is that? And how
You
can we change
know, such a great question. Mental health, mental wellness, emotional wellness, right? It is something that we all have. Nobody is without mental wellness or mental health. As a society, we placed such a stigma on mental health, which in my mind means as a society, we can depower that stigma and we can place an emphasis on mental wellness. So we have the opportunity, I think, as a people to really deconstruct the social construct that we have made around mental health. Now, this is obviously longstanding. There's a number of cultural aspects and diverse conversations that could be had around it. However, if we can just simplify it and remember that because there has been so much shame and secrecy throughout our existence, it's time we realize and accept that we now have the opportunity to rewrite the fact that mental health is a huge part of our humanness. It's a huge part of our human diversity. And that's not going to change. So when we change the narrative, we then are making sure that we are closer to those spaces where mental health can be talked about. We're closer to those spaces where we're networking around mental health. In our communities, in our families, navigating various mental health systems, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the show, The Good Doctor. That is a beautiful example of neurodiversity and how they are destigmatizing mental health and mental wellness. The doctor has severe autism and he is able to perform life-changing and life-saving acts on other people. Now, here's the caveat. We don't live in Hollywood, and that's wonderful that so many actors and actresses and so many shows have depicted this for us. In our everyday lives, we can do the exact same. In our everyday setting, in our learning environments, in our workplace, in our home, we can do the exact same thing. We just have to rewrite what we have been saying to ourselves and others around mental health.
I hope that us talking about this and throughout this series, that can help to just get the gears turning in our listeners' heads, and just something to think about, and how can we reframe that conversation there.
I hope so too.
One thing that we haven't talked about yet, but I do want to talk about before we close out here for this episode, is social media. Social media, I know this is a really big piece. Maybe we can just touch on it here, but social media often creates this unrealistic expectations. How can we protect ourselves in the face of constant comparison?
This is probably one of the best opportunities that we have as a people, honestly. And we have to remember that social media is a moment in time that someone chooses to share something. It's a snapshot, if you will. So when we think that that particular moment is every moment of a person's life, then we set ourselves up for failure. Instead, looking at that moment like, wow, they're sharing this great moment in time that they had it in their life on that day or that month or that celebration. That is fantastic. And there are other moments. There are other moments that happen where the camera's not on. Those lived moments are the moments that we don't get to see. So when we're thinking about social media and how it creates this unrealistic expectation, remind ourselves, this is one moment in time. This is not worth me comparing my entire existence on, because it puts me at a disadvantage. We must remember that when we are looking at that social media outlet, and there are a lot of them, all of which I love, follow me. This is that person's moment. This is not our moment, right?
Yeah.
And so it's worthless to compare ourselves to them, because that's their wellness, that's their well-being, that's what brings them joy. That's not our moment to share on what brings us joy and what's our wellness. One of the things that I think that is important, I know we're getting ready to close out here, and I just really want to share, is the fact that if we get rid of the I and we replace it with we actually change the narrative in itself. So if we think of illness and wellness, illness, ILLNESS, and wellness, WELLNESS, take the I out of it. Think of it from the we lens, is that in all of us, we need to take care of ourselves and we need to take care of others so we can then all be well. So we have a great opportunity to do that in today's day.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think this information shared today applies at all times throughout the year, but especially, maybe not especially is not the right word, but particularly that last piece with the social media right now around the holidays. I know it can be a really hard time. It can be a really exciting time. It can be a mixture of both for some people. And it's just a really important reminder to ourselves to just reflect on the social media example in particular, be happy for someone celebrating or being happy and sharing that moment with us. And we're just a reminder that it really is, like you said, just a glimpse. It is just one moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ty. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm really excited for what's to come over the next few weeks.
Yes, me too. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody who joined us live today, or if you're watching the recording. I hope that we see you back next week. I hope that you can share out this information with your network as well. I hope that we can see you coming in the comments, letting us know what you do to take care of yourself or what wellness looks like for you. And just know that this is a safe space for everyone to show up as they are and join us on this journey.
Wonderful. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah,
be well.
Yes, be well. I hope that you all have a great long weekend. If you're celebrating the holiday, I hope that you enjoy, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.